Hello and welcome to Low Society. Today we have a very special guest, a friend of mine, Adam Lehrer. Is that how you pronounce your last name? Because I feel like I've been pronouncing it wrong for like ages now.
It's just like, it's Lehrer, but
Lehrer.
You can say it however you want. Actually, one of the more interesting factoids about me, honey, turn that off, it's going to muff out my audio, is Tom Lehrer, the semi-infamous satirical musician and MIT professor, is my great uncle, my papa's cousin.
Oh, wow.
So,
cool.
Yeah, like
Wow.
old Hungarian Jewish family, like Jewish commie intellectuals.
Oh, wow.
Bougie Jewish commie intellectuals. Yeah.
I didn't realize that because I didn't know where your last name came from. And I was like, I guessed that maybe it was like German or something, or like Russian or something. I don't know. But yeah, it's a weird last name. Like the spelling of it is like really like weird. It's hard to say.
Yeah, we also have a broadcaster here, Jim Lehrer, who's like the most famous Lehrer.
Maybe it's one of those like Ellis Island names, because I've never heard a European with that name before. So maybe it's like an Ellis Island kind of thing.
Yeah, I think my family came here after World War I.
Oh, wow.
It is the German word for teacher, but I don't know. They're all Jews. We're all Jew bags.
Well, welcome. I'm sure some of you, if you watch my videos on YouTube, will recognize Adam's name, since Adam has helped me out edit 2 of my scripts. He also has a podcast, Safety Propaganda, and a Substack.
The Substack is Safety Propaganda. The podcast is System of Systems. They're
Yes,
like
System of
sister
Systems.
projects.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which I came on System of Systems a couple months ago, which was really cool. And wait, sorry, go ahead. What were you gonna say?
No, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was gonna say, yeah. Also, you have a book coming out as well. Would you like to introduce that?
I do. It's going to be published by a publisher called Hyperion Press, which is based in the UK. It is called Communions, even though it's sort of branded as theory fiction. It's like a hybrid of, art criticism, fan fiction, and it's like elevated fan fiction, art criticism, and like an encrypted autobiography of sorts, primarily dealing with opiate addiction and its role in modernism and art history. Every single chapter basically will find me taking on the life, or taking on the perspective of a famous opiate addicted artist. There's Burroughs, Artaud, Dashno, DJ Screw, like a whole bunch of different figures. The idea came about because I wanted to write about opiate addiction for a long time, because I've been clean off opiates since 2013. It was something I had to get off my chest, but I didn't want to do like a documentary, like cringy sort of history of the opiate epidemic, because that's been trodden before. And I've been writing stories like this like for a long time, where I just kind of sort of put myself into the perspective of the artists that I read or listen to or look at the work of, because I think it's just something I find myself doing in my imagination a lot. It's like I get intensely sort of interested in things, and I wonder what their lives were like, and then I just decided to put that on page. So that'll be out September 30th, and there'll be an afterword written by Nina Power, which is fantastic.
That's awesome.
And yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's going to really, really kick my shit off into the stratosphere.
Awesome.
And from here, it'll just be fame, fortune,
and then you'll like
stop
answering my DMs if that happens to you. You'll stop answering my DMs.
I can never stop myself from answering DMs, so don't worry about it.
Well, that sounds awesome. I expect my free copy. I'm joking. I'm excited. I'm excited for you, and I can't wait to check it out. And yeah, definitely let me know when it's out, so that I can like reiterate it again. And yeah, everyone check it out and check out all the other stuff we've been talking about. Speaking of books, I've been diving into Dune again lately.
In
And
anticipation for the film.
yeah, in anticipation for the film, which I have no expectations for, but I've always been a huge fan of Dune and like Frank Herbert ever since I like was a teenager and I read the first Dune. And it kind of went over my head that it was making parallels to like conflicts in the Middle East until like later on in life when like I don't know, maybe I watched like a stupid YouTube video essay that like told me that. But I think it's very interesting that now that this whole Afghanistan situation has come back into the picture, Dune is back in the zeitgeist with Denis Villeneuve. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing his name correctly.
Villeneuve, I think it
It's
is.
Villeneuve.
Yeah, that's close enough.
I think
Yeah,
so.
with his adaptation, which is slated to come out. When is it slated to come out?
Next month.
Pretty
Yeah,
soon.
Yeah, pretty soon.
And it's crazy. Like, talk about like the disaster that is the film industry right now. This is a $200 million fucking movie, and it's
Yeah.
going directly to HBO Max.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah.
It's insane.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it. A lot of people hated it, but I thought his version, his sequel to Blade Runner was actually brilliant in a similar way, like a $200 million art film that just like totally financially fell flat, but did some very really interesting things visually. And also his movie, his cartel thriller, Sicario, was like super good, violent.
That was his like
thrilling.
first big one, right?
Yeah, I think it was his first big American film. Oh no, his first big American film was Prisoners, where Hugh Jackman like tortures the shit out of Paul Dano for like 2 hours, which was also kind of good.
I'm basically salty because Jodorowsky's Dune is the only Dune I ever wanted to see. And then if anyone else was going to make Dune, it would be David Lynch, but his Dune was not very good.
Well, it just feels like one of those sort of cursed projects, doesn't it? Where
Yeah.
if it was sort of like back in the 80s, like, oh, if anyone can do it, it'd be David Lynch. And then that was terrible. And then it's sort of like, again, if anyone can do it, it would be Dennis.
Because it's so Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead, Angie.
No, I was just gonna say.
I was just saying, like, David kind of did that film on a handshake deal.
Yeah.
Like, he wanted to do Blue Velvet, and Dino De Laurentiis was like, please do Dune for me. It's really kind of out of his... He doesn't really adapt other people's work, ever.
Yeah.
And it was a total fucking disaster. But I also think, just like, there's just, like, what happened with Jodorowsky especially, is just they didn't have... Like, to make that novel come to life, you need new technology that they didn't have. I mean, they had made Blade Runner, but Blade Runner is still such a set-specific kind of world.
Yeah.
Dune is, like, intergalactic. You're traveling through space and time. Next thing you know, you have a movie with, like, fucking laser sword fights.
Yeah, like rubber monsters with, like, rubbery, like, uncanny valley, like, eyes. It's weird. But no, I mean, it's kind of like... I love Jodorowsky, fellow Aquarius, and I feel like he's like, because Dune is so psychedelic, even the way it's written, it's like almost unadaptable because everything is like internal monologue and subtle nuances and the sort of internal processes of these characters. And trying to adapt that to the screen is going to be really difficult. I mean, it has like archetypal... iconic images like the big worms and the Fremen and the glowy eyes from the spice melange. Like there's all this iconic like iconography, but I don't know if they are going to be able to translate the internal part to film, like the heart of it, the thematic dimension. And from what I see, the aesthetics look pretty like cool and spot on. The casting is kind of meh for me at the moment. Like, there's no one in the cast that really makes me like wet, other than Oscar Isaac, who I'm so looking forward to seeing him as the Duke later. That's gonna be, oh my God, I'm not gonna be able to sleep for a month. But yeah, like I don't have my hopes up because the film has such a profound like the text has such a profound humanist message, and it's so like consciousness expanding that I don't feel like it's gonna like be done justice.
Well, bits of the soundtrack have come out on different streaming services and stuff. I checked out Hans Zimmer's Paul's Dream, I think it was, on Apple Music.
Oh wow.
And that was fucking intense.
Oh,
that
wow.
was really
Okay.
cool. That was like, he went there for sure.
Yeah. That's really cool though that fucking Hans Zimmer is like, that is cool, but I don't know, my heart has been broken so many times that I just don't know if I can get excited. Sorry.
Yeah, I think like, well, I'm not gonna write it off. I think, you know, Denis Villeneuve is probably like, there's like 3 filmmakers who still make films at that scale and budget that do anything interesting at all.
Yeah.
And I also like his films also have a lot of violence and brutality to them, which I think is important to this material, as opposed to getting someone like whatever Christopher Nolan, who I don't hate Christopher Nolan, but that's not his thing.
Or like Peter Jackson or something.
Or like Peter Jackson, who has really kind of phoned it in like the third half of his
if I controlled Hollywood, though, I would give it to some random up and comer. You know why? Because what made Jodorowsky's Dune so interesting was that he was completely disrespectful to the source material. He totally threw out the window and took the themes and sort of ran with it. He wasn't trying to adapt Frank Herbert's text word for word. He just sort of read the first 100 pages of it and was like, oh, the spice melange, that sounds fucking cool. I'll have that. And was like, oh, these Bene Gesserit sisters, what's that about? And like basically put his own sort of psycho-spiritual narrative and sort of melded it with like Frank Herbert's vision. And I feel like that's the only way Dune can be done, is if the person who's adapting it has the balls to completely disrespect the source material and just kind of ride the themes. But I don't know. I'm interested. I don't want to be too much of a sourpuss, but I'm also interested because, yeah, like I said before, the sort of plight of the planet Arrakis parallels, you know, the Middle East and what's going on there right now, and how in Dune Arrakis is this planet of very strategic importance, and there are all these different political forces acting on that planet because it's where the spice comes from, and it's what is needed to run the universe in that sense. And, you know, basically the people of Arrakis are just kind of pawns and are totally ignored while these like huge massive forces are just acting upon them constantly. And it's interesting that Frank Herbert was like making that observation so aptly, and it's still happening now.
Why I mean, the reason we were the encrypted reason we've been in Afghanistan for so long is for we get to talk about opiates again here. It's because of their opium pipeline. That's basically like farming their bountiful poppies to produce OxyContin, and for China to, for fentanyl production and elsewhere. That is like the reason we've been in Afghanistan so long. I genuinely do think that big pharma is one of the biggest string pullers on the global stage. I mean, it's $1 trillion industry because for the last 10 years, there's been such little sort of sensible justification for staying in Afghanistan. And there was, like, people forget this now, but at the beginning of it all, forget about Iraq for a second, there was justification to go to Afghanistan, which is that they had attacked us. But then we found out that bin Laden wasn't even fucking there, and we just stayed there anyways. I really always think it's been about their opium supply. I don't think that, I don't really have any doubt about that. And I'm also curious now that we're not there, and the country took I shouldn't laugh about this, but it took an hour to plunge into chaos.
Yeah.
I wonder how it will affect our opiate supply now, and how that will affect production of not just painkillers, but also things that addicts need for opiate maintenance systems and methadone and otherwise.
Wow.
I think there are like way larger ramifications to these issues, but either way, it's a fucking disaster.
But it's so what, like, you couldn't hydroponically grow poppies indoors like you do weed or other drugs and stuff like that, like, or like it's similar to cocaine where it needs a very specific climate for it to really thrive like that?
All opiates are derived directly of the poppy, and then the specific chemical compounds that they take are done in a lab. So from the poppy, you can get morphine. From morphine, you can get heroin. OxyContin. They're all derivatives of poppy opium. The production of the drug happens after the extraction of the poppy.
Yeah.
Do you reckon the wind down in fossil fuels supposedly as well is part of why they're happy to leave those oil fields alone and leave them where they be?
Totally.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, one of the interesting things I've kind of been observing at the moment is like just the general response to it by liberals, which has been like, of course, largely like unhinged. I mean, the most sort of hilarious thing that I've seen recently has been like liberal feminists sort of, chiding the US government for pulling out of the conflict because the Taliban has now taken over, and it's like they're like making parallels to The Handmaid's Tale and all of this stuff, and just sort of totally trivializing the humanitarian catastrophe that's clearly happening, to sort of cover for the imperialist war machine, which is like really nakedly fucked up. And then also loads of people were sort of congratulating Biden, like the Biden bro types were like, oh yeah, he pulled out, he's the man. And it's like, no, like it's like he's the perfect person to have in place now because he can sort of launder the excesses of the people that are responsible for this catastrophe while also kind of taking credit for finally pulling out after like 20 fucking years. It's been really frustrating. It's been super frustrating to watch like the response and the stuff that people have been saying about it, like, and it's not as if anything's going to come of it. What's going to happen is America's going to do like a slow French exit and just kind of like, ghost. Like America's going to fucking ghost and leave the problem to fester, what can one do? There's no other way around it.
Yeah, and honestly, of course, taking whatever issues we have with the exiting the country is still the best move. Like, there's nothing that we've been doing there productive for like 18 fucking years. Yeah. And honestly, like, Biden's speech was it was like 75% a disaster, where like half the time he's just blaming the Afghan forces for, like, he's basically calling them pussies or like ill-prepared to deal with the Taliban, even though the Taliban is like a highly CIA-trained murder force that has been like the militaristic force to be reckoned with in the region for a long time. So it's not surprising that they overran the country. I think most people in the administration probably knew this was going to happen. But at the end of the day, I'm also still I still do think leaving is the best thing to do. Yeah. The Afghanistan people do not want us there. They haven't wanted us there for Tucker Carlson. I'm going to have to shout him out because his like monologue last night on this was super fucking good. Because he's talking about how, like, feminism and our sort of academic ideological production, it's all imperialism at the end of the day. We thought that we could give Afghani people intersectional courses or gender studies courses and that they would start to internalize our cultural value system. But they don't fucking want it. No. Maybe they, like, these are different cultures. And and the continued presence of the U.S. military, the continued death of American and other Western soldiers is just so unjustifiable. So honestly, like the speech that I would have liked more, I think, is just Biden being like, yeah, it's a fucking disaster. We're sorry, but you know, we had to get the fuck out of there. It's too much. And one of the things that people forget about Biden too, Biden's been a tremendous piece of shit his entire career, but his sort of like one redeeming value, especially in his role in the Obama administration, he was like the moderating force on foreign policy in the Obama admin. He was like very skeptical, for instance, of the way that we took out Osama bin Laden. And he also was the one pushing back against the invasion of Libya. So he does have this kind of like boomer anti-war streak to him. And despite the grotesquerie of all the images, I'm happy that we're gone. I also have a way more far-fetched theory about this, but I will wait. I'll wait for the show to unfold a little bit before I pull it out.
Well, I mean, the U.S. military-industrial complex is always expanding and looking for new frontiers anyway. And I mean, the Biden administration did declare a domestic war on terror, a war on domestic terror. And yeah, the sort of notion that, I mean, Biden himself even said that the biggest threat to American national security is extremism and extremist groups, even though the sort of definition of extremism is incredibly vague and malleable. And what I see is the sort of chickens coming home to roost eventually, and that apparatus being focused in on American citizens in terms of more surveillance and public control and all of those different things, sort of creating a system similar to China's, maybe not as like, maybe more in more of a soft power way, but in this sort of ramping up of like the panopticon like environment that we currently exist in,
right,
to maintain like social order. And that's kind of where I see the new frontier being. This is sort of like the swan dance of the old form of conflict that sort of dominated the beginning of the 21st century, and now we're entering an entirely new terrain.
Yeah, and this just to go back to what you'd said there, Adam. Like, I totally get that like point of view of like, you know, they don't want us there, and it's better for us to be gone. But yeah, the images are pretty harrowing of them, of certain, you know, people trying to gather onto the planes as they're leaving and like falling off and stuff like that. That doesn't send the message that they wanted. The military presence totally gone. So it's kind of like it's a battle of the inner hippie in me of like, yeah, no, we should have been out of there. We never should have been there. Like, what the fuck are we doing still? But then at the same time, you see that it's just like, well,
but it's
yeah,
like
it's kind of complicated. But I also kind of empathize. It feels like it's also like Kabul. It was always kind of the place that was more metropolitan in Afghanistan
for sure.
But
like decades,
it's complicated.
Even prior to US being there.
But it's complicated though, because you can at once admonish the operations of America while also being sympathetic to the plight of the people who are now going to be under the Taliban.
Totally.
And it's not like a one or all thing. And America's never been a good guy, and that's what is kind of made me annoyed watching all of these sort of like blue check libs and journalists acting as if America is this like benevolent operator who's there to spread critical race theory and like gender studies instead of to do imperialism.
Yeah, and it's as you said there, Adam, like their interests probably no longer lie financially in the country, which is why.
Well, yeah, that's what I was. That's what I was just gonna say, because I basically agree with Lenin's definition of imperialism, that generating profits from imperialist colonialism is like the final stage of capitalism. And that's what the sort of NGO, like we've spent $1 billion over there just on like creating academic courses to try to inculcate them into a more Western ideology. That's not coming from a place of morality. That's coming from a place of trying to create pliant consumers overseas. And that's kind of why I've come down on sort of this like not hard line, but maybe semi-rigid position is, yeah, of course this is going to create new refugees, but I think the ultimate like reason why, there has been this sort of escalating, let's get out of Afghanistan thing happening on both the left and the right in the West, is with the realization that our ideology just wouldn't infiltrate their society in the way that we thought it would, and it ultimately proved to be like less financially profitable to our bourgeois. But have you ever seen like the Scorsese movie Silence?
No,
I
that's
haven't yet.
where the monks go to
To
Japan,
Japan, and
right?
the
Right.
Japanese like
Yeah.
fuck them up.
Right. It's not my favorite Scorsese movie by any means. It's pretty fucking boring, but it does have a pretty profound critique in it, because the movie is about these Jesuit priests trying to convert the Japanese. And what the main Jesuit priest, played by Andrew Garfield, realizes throughout the movie is that, because there's like this huge language barrier that sort of defines the film. And when he realizes the way that the Japanese people are practicing Christianity, it's in a way that's like totally subverted from the actual scriptures. It's sort of like melded into Japanese traditional culture. I do think a lot of this has to do with I think this kind of connects here, because ultimately we were trying to inculcate the Afghani people, and I just think it didn't work, which led to a lot of like, even amongst our elite, people being like, well, what the fuck are we doing at this point? Because it's not like the people drove this decision in any way. This was a decision made by the ruling class.
Yeah. But when we're talking about colonial territories, it's very difficult to, number one, I don't really think that the West has a like monopoly on enlightened ideals. I think enlightened ideals come out of material conditions that like allow enlightened ideals. Like if you're not just like focused on like basic survival instincts and sort of tribalistic survival mechanisms, those enlightened ideals are far more likely to organically arise, in my opinion. And I feel like, the idea that bombing and colonizing people into an enlightened Western style liberal democracy is kind of far-fetched, because that exact thing is what keeps that from ever occurring in the first place. I feel like every culture has to go through the motions, and historically some have gone through the motions more acceleratedly than others for economic, geographic, all kinds of different reasons, germs, diseases, guns, germs, and steel, whatever the fuck. And I feel like, cultures have to go through the motions, and this sort of paternalism is always going to end up being corrosive, in my opinion, and especially the way that it's sort of, shrouding itself in concern for women and then all of this bullshit.
But yeah, it also feels like there are other, emirate nations where Sharia law or a version of that is pretty much what the system is.
But those guys are our allies. They're our allies. So, we're not trying to, culturally colonize them because we have vested interest in like, turning a blind eye. But I'm interested to see how, whatever, all the ideologies that fall under the branch of wokeness contend with like outside of the Western world and the rest of this century. I think it's going to be really interesting.
I can't wait to I can't wait to catch up with my brother next, because he's a veteran of and he went to Afghanistan twice. I got all first 21 seasons of The Simpsons and 10 seasons of American Dad on a return trip from Afghanistan. So
what, he bought you like some bootlegs?
Yeah, some bootlegs and all sorts of like fun. So he brought me back a fucking spider, a pinned spider in a frame. like a huge fucking like desert tarantula or some shit that they have
That's
out there. It's
fucking
fucking
awesome.
brutal.
That's so cool.
I'm terrified of spiders, so I hated that. But
Yeah.
it must be kind of weird, sort of. I mean, it's like I've already heard the parallels of like, you know, between the imagery even of like, you know, those planes and people leaving Saigon and stuff in '75 or whenever it was. And the parallels must be the same for those veterans and people that fought in that war as well. Of just like, what a fucking waste of time. Like,
Oh, totally. It's gonna be.
friends dead.
I mean,
like lives totally altered.
Yeah.
Wow.
And before commenting on this, I just want to clarify. I didn't mean to suggest I think like Middle Eastern cultural values are less than whatever. I don't, because like I said, I don't think, yeah, like the ruling class is trying to create new consumers overseas. It's never about like making them see the light of our value system. It's about making them pliant to our fucking totalizing systems of capital domination. But yeah, I had one of my close high school friends fought in Afghanistan. When did he go in? Pretty late in, like 2011. He went in as an officer after he already graduated from college. His dad was like super fucking neocon, like loved Dick Cheney, and he had trouble getting a job out of college. And his dad was like, join the military, you know, you fucking pussy, or whatever. And he thought he was going to go in as a tech engineer and barely see any combat. That was, I mean, he came back, he had seen 3 friends get blown up on IEDs, and he was basically unrecognizable as human for years.
Wow.
Maybe that's just like colored my perception of this. I just like, you know, it's all, to me, it's just like, it's all ultimately imperialism. There's no morality underpinning any of this, because the people who make these decisions don't give a fuck about who lives, who dies. It's always motives that are so beyond our perception that we'll never even truly understand them, even if we get like at the crux of it. But I don't know, like there's just something about this that feels so fucking off at the same time. And like, you know, it's so sort of like Baudrillard. Those images are so spectacleized and hyper real and Baudrillardian. Like, you know, sometimes I troll 4chan just to like, you know, as like a creative endeavor, like to see like the most sort of spaced out, like fucked up takes that I can find. And there was a whole thread about how those Taliban fighters were actors, that they had been seen in Michael Bay movies.
Oh my god.
And there is just something that seems so, I mean, because we know for sure, like on record, that CIA and MI6 have both cut deals with Taliban in the past, that we've done diplomacy with these people. So like I do have this like, and I'm not speaking with any certainty, so I don't want people to think that I'm reporting false facts here, but there is just like this feeling of surrealism that saturates all of this. Because then the other thing that happened is the people that have been like so pro-Biden against all the evidence that the man is functionally fucking retarded are now sort of coming out against him. So part of me feels like, okay, they have to make good on this promise to get out of Afghanistan, because, you know, it would be too big for them to just like not do it at this point. But how perfect that this colossal outbreak of violence happens like right away. And I guarantee we're going to start hearing the neocon, neo-libtard push to start sending soldiers back.
Yeah.
So like my most like paranoiac, don't take me seriously at all, but I'm going to say it anyways, take is that maybe there's like glowy activity happening on the ground. But I'm not sure. I don't know. It just kind of feels like there's some op activity happening.
Yeah.
Well, within these last few days, they have been sending at least some stuff back and forth, because they've been trying to evacuate everyone. Like there was a British politician, I think our Ministry of Defence or whatever, head of the Ministry of Defence, was like crying on the radio because he's like, "Oh, there's British nationals over there, and we failed them, and I'm just so bad." You're just like, you're the head of the army.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
This is embarrassing. And also,
That's all Jake's concerned about.
Wouldn't we be organised
British
enough to
pride.
sort of like, you know, have communication open with, you know, the special interest, you know, relationship, whatever we have with America, to know that this is going to happen, and then to pull those and to start getting those people ready and get out before like this all happens? Like, it just feels like so so silly, and so
silly.
rushed. So I don't exactly know what the hot potato was to make it happen like overnight like that. Also, why did the Afghan forces not like put any kind of fight up at all? Was it like a consensual like thing between the rest of the Afghani government, apart from the president, obviously, that fled the country, to just be like, yeah, just hand it over. You don't give a shit. Just like, we trust you. You gotta. And you know what? You're going through a rebranding. The whole, you know, list of stuff you got out there, that's sounding way less brutal than it was 20 years ago. Like, women can be educated and all of this. So, you know what? We'll give you another chance. Let's fucking go for it. And then they just axe the Western controlled puppet that was the president, and he's no, not the guy. So it kind of makes sense. It's all slotting together.
For sure, it is interesting too. Like, there has been this almost pseudo legitimization like campaign of the Taliban itself, especially over the years of ISIS, because the guys from ISIS were so outwardly fucking psychopathic and like colossally brutal that the Taliban, giving interviews out there and whatnot, they're like presenting as straight up like presidential and like almost a new governing body. It's really kind of fucking bizarre. And I also just think, like, at the end of the day, and this kind of goes back to my sort of earlier point, I think if I'm an Afghani citizen and I have the boot of the world's most powerful imperial state at my fucking throat for 20 years, maybe being governed by my own people, even by one as historically brutal, doesn't present to you as an individual as the sort of abject like atrocity that it would to us, because we were the occupying body. You know, and sure, there were a lot of people that wanted us there, and definitely a lot of people that wanted us to get out now. But I mean, like, it's not our country, and we were making their decisions for 20 fucking years. That would drive me nuts. Yeah, and you can't revolt against America. No, it's impossible.
No. But that's also like the sort of history of Afghanistan so far. It's been sort of, again, subject to all of these giant, powerful forces outside of its control. And the people who I feel the most sorry for are the people who are just caught in this conflict. I mean, Afghanistan itself isn't even really a country. It's just like an amalgamation of like different ethnic groups that have been warring for dominance for like thousands of years.
Well, and that was one thing that like my brother told me when he came back like the second time that like really struck me, is that it's only really in those metropolitan areas like Kabul and stuff where this idea of Afghanistan really even exists.
Exactly.
Because as soon as you get out into rural areas, like those people don't even have the concept of Afghanistan. They don't really get it.
And also, a lot of the pictures that have been floating,
that doesn't mean anything to them. So it's like, and that even then leaves you think like, what the fuck are you even doing if these people don't even like have the concept of their own nation in their mind, like, and we're there telling them that it's a thing and dictating what it does and how it should run and shit. It's just like, that's totally fucking
But then
crazy.
Also a lot of the pictures that have been floating around of Afghanistan in the 60s looking all like groovy, a lot of that is stuff from like the capital, most probably, because even before
from Kabul,
from Kabul, even before the Taliban, the actual like government of Afghanistan was also corrupt and terrible too. So the people were sort of underneath that. It's just been this place where there's been this sort of like war for dominance that completely discounts like what the people want and what their vision is in that sense. But one of the other responses that I found super interesting is libs comparing what went on in Afghanistan to January 6th, which is just about the most like narcissistic, disgusting, fucked up thing that you could.
They've been putting the video parallels up with the of those people rushing into Kabul airport with breaking through the walls of or the doors of the White House.
Fucking Michael Moore tweeted about like did you see it? Did you see the Michael Moore tweet where he tweeted?
No, I blocked him because I can't listen to anything he fucking says.
He did like a parallel with like the QAnon Viking guy, and he was like, "They're Taliban, our Taliban," and it was like, "Come on, dude."
Oh
like,
yeah. Jerry Saltz posted that too.
I did this really funny tweet where I was like, I can't wait for AOC to be like, well, I identify with the women of Afghanistan because I too was almost accosted by QAnon barbarians on January 6th. And like, it's definitely the kind of thing that she would say. But yeah, it just goes to show like the narcissism of it all. Like,
it's very on brand.
Yeah, it's like so on brand for them to like try and make it about their like lame, mundane bullshit. And yeah, they keep trying to draw all of these like Hunger Games #resist bullshit. And I mean, the ones who have institutional power are gearing up to pressure the government back out there to accomplish the imperial agenda. And the ones who don't have institutional power are just dumb rubes who like to project their revolution fantasies on people who are desperate. They're always searching for like a new revolutionary subject. Anything that has sort of like any kind of like tenor to it like that is sort of seized upon. I remember when the End SARS protest stuff was going on in Nigeria, and I went on Rising, and I'm sure that the reason they invited me on is because they were like, oh, we just need a Nigerian to talk about what's going on there because we don't know.
A Nigerian that doesn't speak broken English.
Yeah, a Nigerian that doesn't speak broken English to like tell us about it. And like they kept trying to like tease an angle out of me to make it tie to some kind of broader anti-police struggle or whatever. And it's like, no, like you're projecting into a context that like is completely different. And like the police brutality in Nigeria, in Africa in general, is way worse than anything you could imagine ever happening in the Western world. Nigerian police are fucking brutal to Nigerian citizens because they have impunity to get away with whatever the fuck they want. It's like a gang of its own. And like, you know, it's like there's no media pressure on them to behave themselves. They can be as brutal as they want. And yeah, it just seems to be this impulse among the like less connected, institutionally embedded libs to basically project their Hunger Games fantasy or their Handmaiden's Tale fantasy on these like random people.
It's like they can just about get away with putting the American police brutality on the news, but the African police brutality is like NRT rating.
Yeah,
whatever.
It's like dark web.
It's like
deep
web. It's not hitting theaters.
No.
It's not hitting the airwaves. That is only for snuff films. It's like not acceptable.
Exactly.
But I mean, like, it's so obvious why they do what they do with this shit, right? Like, I mean, you were just talking about the crying general before. Like, I want to make this fucking guy read, like, Bronze Age mindset or something and learn how to, like, wield his power in a way that's more direct. Because I would rather... I was arguing about this with a good pal of mine. Like, I would rather the state show up at my house, put a fucking gun in my mouth, and take me to jail than sort of, like, ideologically blue ball me into eventually, or like, you know, sort of like emotionally manipulating me into accepting their bullshit. Like, you want the state to be demystified because at the end of the day, AOC and all the other ones, Cori Bush is like actually psychotic, by the way. Like, she might be the most scary individual in America right now. But they are the bourgeois state. During a proletarian revolution, they would be the people. They would not be leading us to workers' paradise. They would be a part of the state that we'd have to destroy.
Yeah. No, They're Paul
Yeah.
Atreides in Dune. You know, they've come to free the people of Arrakis. They're the prophesied Kwisatz Haderach. That's how they see themselves, really. I'm sure there's like a BreadTube video that's going to be made any day now that's like drawing the parallels between Dune and like fucking making it some like crazy lib message or whatever.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah,
it's on its way right now.
It's on its way, right? It's cooking. But
Yeah.
honestly, they see themselves as the hero of the narrative, and I think they genuinely do believe in like the American exceptionalist narrative, and they're just trying to find a way to like launder it and to make it socially palatable to the average citizen. And they have all this cognitive dissonance because they see themselves as like hippies and liberators when they're really like fucking neocons and freaks. And yeah, like even someone like Kamala Harris, who's like a literal fucking lock 'em up, like fucking cop. She's now this like docile, you know, patron saint of social justice. It doesn't make sense. They carry around all this fucking cognitive dissonance. And it's like, you know, it's fine to be like this horrible prosecutor cop so long as you're like a girl boss and like stomp around in like a pantsuit, you know, or have some kind, or like AOC like cry and have some kind of fucking victim narrative to like shroud yourself in, or like
they're the vanguard.
Yeah,
the vanguard party.
Yeah.
No, I mean they're all really. I hesitate to use the word like evil. They're all just fucking bureaucrats. You know, they're state functionaries, and they're going to lie and manipulate us because that's their political economic role. I do think Kamala Harris is probably satanic on some level.
Yeah, me too.
But that's neither here nor there. It doesn't.
She smells
matter.
like brimstone when you get close to her.
She has like, I feel like she goes like spirit cooking with like Maria Abramovic. Like, I feel like that's how she spends her Saturdays.
There's
cooking.
I really think there are regime sorceresses. I think I think Marina is like she kind of like, you know, during their like big pedophile rituals of like Sadian decadence or whatever, I think they're like, I can see Marina sort of like conjuring the spirit, like the demons of malevolence. And then I think like Marianne Williamson is also low key a regime sorceress.
I wish someone would hire me as their like regime sorceress, but for good, not for evil.
Well, do you reckon this is the outcome from the spell that Trump and all of those other
the orb spell that like all of
they
them
all gathered
cast?
round and did the ritual, and now they handed Afghanistan over to the Taliban. Like it was all set in stone from them.
Maybe I don't you know, there's no such thing as a coincidence, as that guy on TikTok says.
It's all connected,
it's
baby.
All connected. I met Maria Abramovic once in the name of the art gallery that's in Regent's Park, or is it Hyde Park? Is it the Turpin?
In Hyde Park, you've got the Serpent.
Yeah, the Serpent. It was at the Serpent.
Oh, Serpentine.
Yeah, the Serpentine. The Serpentine. It was at the Serpentine, and she was doing it was like an artist is present thing there. This is like back when I was in uni, and she was just sort of sitting in the middle of the room, and everyone was like in the room with her, and then she was like organizing us into gestures and like poses and stuff. And it was the most bizarre thing in the world. I had no idea what was going on, but I was an art hoe, so I felt like I had to go and see what was going on or whatever. And yeah, she has a very strong presence in a room. Like, she's a true performance artist. You can't deny it. But it was really bizarre because afterwards we went to sort of shake our hand because she was greeting people who were there. And then they sort of swiftly kicked everyone out and started playing Niggas in Paris on the piano really loud as everyone was like leaving, which was like really fucking bizarre. Nice. I don't know, it was really weird.
She did the Jay-Z video that one time.
Is that why?
Yeah.
Because I thought it was odd.
Yeah, she was in one of his videos. I forget which one. I don't know. You know, like Jay-Z's mad corny. He did like this whole I'm an art collector video kind of thing.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, Marina, she ripped off a lot of her ideas from her ex, Ule, you know, because like they used to perform together, but she just is like so beautiful and, as you said, magnetic that she was able to spin fucking gold out of it.
Mm-hmm.
But as a toxic, misogynist male writer and artist, I just prefer the likes of like Vito Assanzi and the Viennese Actionist, you know?
Yeah.
Well, Shia LaBeouf basically copied her in loads
Yeah,
of
he
ways as
totally
well. Then,
fucking
'cause
copied her style.
I didn't realize she was also in Jay-Z because he was then in the Sia video doing that
Yeah, all
whole
that
dance with the
interpretive
like
dance with,
child
like, a
or whatever.
child.
Like that was
And
Yeah,
then
strange.
the monarch butterfly.
I would rather have that moment with the artist with Shia LaBeouf though, just so I could like just try and like chat shit to him and like crack a smile out of him and try and like get him to go for a joint with me. I was like, dude, all of this like energy. I get it. This is a great art piece, but can we just go for a joint afterwards and you can talk to me like jerk stories about Hollywood and shit? Because that's what I would really want to do. I don't want to sit here and look at your face. Like this is cute, but come on, like.
And his like best friend / art partner was Luke Turner, who is like the UK is like chief cancel culture libtard. Who's like literally ruined the life of several friends of mine. He's actually in court right now. Shit! No, I shouldn't say this.
Allegedly,
it's like still private. But
he's being taken.
But yeah, he's being taken to court right now for smearing people as fascists because the argument is that's not like a free speech thing. That's you're saying that as a statement, which has like material consequences. But here's the funny thing, right? So Luke Turner literally like has like ruined people's lives for like my friend Deanna Havas. She was a young artist and he totally ruined her life because she liked the fucking Pepe meme. That was like the entire controversy. He got the gallery LD50, which is also in the UK, probably the most everything cool that's happened since is like post LD50. It was an amazing project. He got that closed. But his best friend Shia LaBeouf is revealed as a straight up brutal rapist pig, and he says fucking nothing.
But that's how they
about it on social media.
That's how they are.
It's unbelievable.
And Twigs too, like. Because I used to be a big fan of FKA Twigs because she's like a London girl, has that like bohemian vibe. So I felt like a spiritual connection to her or whatever. But like after I learned about the whole like Shia LaBeouf thing, of course I feel sorry for her. It's not a good thing to go through, but it's also like, he's obviously crazy. Like he's obviously insane. But then there are some women who like that, or they're like, I can be the one who's gonna fix him or whatever. And it's like, girl, run.
My fiance.
Adam's pointing.
Well, no, it'd be like dating a Kardashian.
Like,
it'd be like dating a Kardashian
away.
And being like, oh,
he's a Gemini.
They're so self-centered. Why?
Run for the hills.
Why would I want to be with this person that's so self-centered? Like you dating a Kardashian.
Yeah, basically, or not like a Kardashian with like serious BPD. Like run. This is like a male Gemini we're talking about who was a child star. A male Gemini who is a child star. Like, come on. Like, it's fine. I would fuck him. I would have a good time with him, but I would not be in a domestic situation.
I don't want listeners to be like, "Oh, Jake wants to get high and hang out with a rapist." Like, I mean, I would hang out and get high with lots of questionable people because I'm sure they've got very interesting stories.
Oh, no, here's a good Shia story for you. It's probably low-key. I have like lots of weird insider info about this bullshit because he's kind of like been in and out of the art world for a long time. One of my best friends, Anna's friends with him too as well, Matthew Malouf, who's a painter here in New York, he did a show about Shia's friend, the aforementioned Luke Turner, in Los Angeles about 3 years ago called Luke Turner is Retarded. That was the name of the show. And apparently Shia, because he lives in LA, showed up at the space to try and find Matthew, who lives here, so he wasn't there, and ended up like beating the shit out of one of the fucking kids who just works at the gallery. Like he's totally unhinged.
Oh my god.
I'm not like vilifying him. He's clearly got a lot of issues. I'm just saying by Luke Turner's standards, who thinks you deserve to lose your livelihood over memes, you think he should say something about his best friend having, at the very least, serious women problems.
Yeah, it's true, but they don't. It's like, punitive identity politics for thee, but not for me. And like whenever
Always.
they're, whenever they're in the position to actually truly hold someone accountable, they never fucking do. Their holding accountable is basically bullying people who have dissenting opinions, which is not ever holding anyone accountable. And like, yeah, the same thing with like the whole Johnny Depp and Amber Heard thing, which I thought was another situation where it's like BPD is as BPD does. Like
Yeah.
he had like Vanessa Paradis, his baby mama, beautiful French woman, traded her in for a hotter, younger blonde. But like if you
Many
lay
such
down with dogs,
cases.
yeah, it's like many such cases. But it's like if you lay down with dogs, you're gonna catch fleas. Like some crazy, like she's gonna throw wine bottles at you, and she's gonna fucking try to drown your cat. Like, she's
That's
hot,
real?
but she's
He tried to drown his
no,
cat.
she didn't try to drown his cat. I'm
He
just
did shit in his bed,
yeah. Apparently, she shot in his bed,
which is
just like But
that's-
like
well,
I said,
it's one way to
I
go
feel
about
sorry
it.
for him in the sense that like it was damaging to his career, but at the same time, like you kind of got yourself into that one, mate. That's your choices or whatever. And then Amber Heard was also dating Elon Musk for a while, or they had like a brief like flirtation, and I guess he dodged that bullet, or did he? Because now he's with Grimes, who I absolutely despise.
Yeah, and
I
at least Amber
absolutely-
Heard's like mega hot,
Yeah, exactly.
Men love that shit.
Would you tolerate the hotness? Is the level of hotness dictate the level of crazy that you're willing to tolerate?
Probably not for
I
me.
mean,
if I'm
it
honest.
always seems exciting in the beginning, right? Like, a little crazy seems very exciting at the beginning of a relationship. It's like, I have an ex actually who is like very, I'll say, high strung, so as not to smear her character too much, but and it was very exciting for like the first 4 months, but then I lived in like literal abject terror of her for like a year and a half. I think
Oh my
that's like
God.
a
Yeah.
very common case. You get attracted to something like this idea of passion that's sort of like inculcated into you from bad movies and shit, and then you realize that you're like a man who's supposed to be like on the gender binary, like the one who is whatever, more fearsome or whatever, and like you actually end up living in terror of your fucking partner or whatever.
Yeah.
Shit happens.
That's the thing as well. Like it seems as if modernity and the way that women have become infantilized under this like liberal feminism, it sort of allows women to get away with our worst behaviors. And even the notion that a woman can be abusive is like almost shunned and not really paid attention to by the general public. They seem to be more voyeuristically interested in the idea of like the man as perpetrator, even though there are many crazy bitches out there. You got to be careful of the crazy bitches.
If I was Johnny Depp, I'd be kicking myself. Be like, damn it, 20 years ago, I was chilling with Hunter S. Thompson, getting high as fuck. Now I'm here in a defamation lawsuit with the Sun, trying to defend myself from being a fucking wife beater. What the fuck happened to me?
He's in his he was like in his 50s when he found Amber, and it's as if you're supposed to learn the lesson that crazy is as crazy does when you're much younger. Like I can understand if you're in your 20s and you're like, yeah, this hot crazy bitch who likes to like carve my name into her arm, she's so passionate or whatever. But if you're 50 it's like a lot of these celebrities have like arrested development and are like stuck in the adolescent sort of mindset, which is usually why they'll leave their wife to go for like a much younger woman, because they're perpetually teenage boys in their head, and that's what they can like relate to. And I feel bad for him because the culture tends to favor women, which is the reason why when it initially came out, the Sun, or was it the Daily Mail, smeared
Sun, I think.
the Sun, yes, smeared him as like a wife beater without even having any proof. They called him a wife beater, which then like got him fired from all his movie franchises.
They won the lawsuit though.
Yeah.
There's enough evidence to substantiate that Johnny Depp is a wife beater by one of the highest courts in the UK.
Wow.
So I mean,
Wow.
do take that for what it is as well.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Wait,
I
so what?
mean,
He got who won the suit? The Sun
The
did?
Sun did, yeah. So he didn't win the suit, the counter suit against them or whatever. So like there was enough evidence to justify calling him a wife beater. So it wasn't defamation because there was enough there to
Yeah.
justify it, basically.
Yeah. But
As
no,
much as I love Johnny Boy, you know.
I mean,
doing
I mean,
great.
I have no doubt that he smacked her around a little bit. She shit in his bed. I mean,
but then he
There
also
we
there's
go.
also the audio of her literally admitting to beating him, and then also
Yeah.
anecdotes from people about her past like behavior and
Yeah,
stuff.
but they're all Johnny's yes men.
Do you think
You
so?
can't yeah.
Is
They're
Jake
all-
doing a
they're all-
believe whammon right
I'm
now?
not doing a believe whammon, but like they're like his production people and the people he's making movies with. It's like, of course, they're like financially entwined
Not
in
all
him.
of them were that, though. I mean, I don't think Winona Ryder,
No, that's fair enough.
because these are women who he had previously dated, who are basically combating the whole believe whammon narrative by defending his character.
Yeah.
Really,
yeah,
it doesn't.
they said he was an alcoholic, that he had drug problems, but that he was never violent
abusive,
like that.
yeah, violent.
So
yeah.
I really think if he was violent, and I'm not saying that there's a justification, I'm just saying she probably was pushing his buttons pretty fucking hard. But
Slapping
that's
him
the
about
thing with
and
this
shitting in the
shit,
bed.
right?
That's
Yeah,
like at least 2 out of 3. It's not good.
And that is a kind of power imbalance, right? Because like a woman can like take a fucking glass to a guy's head pretty much without recourse, but as soon
I've
as a
seen
guy
it. I've seen that
as
shit
soon as a
happen
guy-
before. I've seen
Yeah.
that shit happen before of like women who will straight up fucking beat the shit out of their men. But then again, men are like Oedipal and they want their like Lady Demetrescu or whatever. They want their like vampire mommy that's like gonna.
Oh,
I
Resident
think,
Evil, yeah.
yeah, their Resident Evil mommy who's gonna like fucking.
I played that game.
I've never.
Did you play it with a thick mod?
With a thick mod?
Yeah.
Wait, there's a thick mod?
Yeah.
People are perverted.
That came out
so
literally within 6 hours, or like literally within 24 hours of the game's release.
People
are
Thick
really
mod
make her
for
thicker.
Lady Dimitrescu. Yeah, see,
Oh,
you're in now. He's gonna Google this straight
He's
after
gonna
the pod.
Google it straight up.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh my God.
I wanted to play that game like for a long time, but I had still like a month left to finish my book deadline, so I was like, I'm gonna wait till the shit's done, but I didn't. I played it like as soon as it came out, and then played it like consistently for 2 weeks, and then just like did all the work in the last 2 weeks.
But yeah,
It was a pretty good game though.
I mean, I don't think I've ever, I think I've watched my brothers play the game, but like I know that there's like, because I remember when I was in high school, all the like weird nerd otaku boys were like salivating over the nurses, who are these like women with deformed faces, but like big mommy milkers in nurse costumes. And it's like, what's happening? Why is this? What is happening? Why do you want to fuck monsters and pixels and like what is going on with
it's a strange world.
It's a strange world. It's a very strange world.
Yeah.
But anywho, moving on to the COVID stuff that's been going and the vaccine mandate stuff that's been going on, I think we should talk some about that since that's been on everyone's mind recently. So in the UK, come September, vaccine passports are quite possibly going to be a thing. Well, pretty much like
It's not been confirmed.
well, it's not been confirmed, but it looks like that's where it's headed here. And then in
Typically,
France,
when it seems bad, it's worse.
yeah, that's literally like, yeah. Because in France, the same thing happened where Macron was like, no, we're not going to do any of that here. And then like sort of overnight, these measures just kind of came in where the unvaccinated now cannot participate in public life. So you can't go to the cinema, you can't go to a cafe, you can't go to Le Louvre or whatever the fuck, unless you show the document du sanitaire, which is like, if I'm pronouncing that properly, which is like basically a vaccination passport type of thing. And then in Australia too, lockdowns have been implemented and enforced by
Yeah, that
police.
was crazy. Did you actually see that? So it was like camera, like has like however many thousands of people in it, or like even maybe up to 1 million people in it. One case of COVID, and they shut everybody in.
Wow.
One case.
Wow.
Because it was clear for ages, and then just one case, and they shut literally like 500,000 people in the houses.
Yeah. Yeah.
That
Yeah.
seems like overkill to
Yeah.
me, personally.
Yeah, it's funny.
Why wouldn't you shut the one person in their house? That makes more sense, right?
Yeah, I'm going to a noise festival in Brooklyn in 2 weeks. It's like an annual noise thing for the noise crew of New York. Got a lot of friends who are noise makers, etc. And I was looking forward to it. But they and these are like extreme fucking artists. Like, we're all transgressive.
Yeah.
We're fucking sick. And then the guy who runs the festival is this guy named Bob Belleroux. He went like full insane. He's always been kind of a libtard, but like crypto. But now he's just like gone insane, full-blown libtard.
Oh, no.
And he made the announcement that you have to wear a mask and show a vaccine passport. And a bunch of like edgelord noise bros were commenting on the Instagram post like, oh, good thing black people don't usually show up to your shows anyways, because this is literally like a segregationist policy, because in America it's like black Americans are the least are the most skeptical of the vaccines. So like literally it is like a new form of segregationism.
Yeah, it is. And that's kind of what's going on in other parts of the globe and also in America as well. Like certain workplaces are beginning to push through the mandate as well, upon pain of being fired from one's job. And some people are speculating that like September is going to be the cutoff point where we're going to start seeing globally a lot of these mandate coercive measures pushed through to the point where they actually start to like affect people in terms of like their livelihood and this and that. And yeah, there are people who are vaccine hesitant for decent reason, and I don't think that they should be forced to, not be a part of public life. I mean, you even have people like Don Lemon on CNN saying, if you don't have your vaccine, can't go to the grocery store. It's like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, are you serious right now? Like this amount of much. The sadism, the sheer sadism and like cruelty of it is what is just what has astounded me. And I don't even know why I'm surprised. Like during the when it all goes back to January 6th, sorry. During January 6th, when that lady was shot in the head and people were like celebrating it and saying, oh, she should be feeding worms because she's a fascist scum pig dog.
Yeah.
That kind of made me really realize like the sadistic impulses that are behind like a lot of this stuff. And I feel like the vaccine mandate stuff is literally just going to be the excuse people are waiting for to unleash all of their like sadism.
Yeah. I mean, I have like two takes on this. One kind of more straightforward, one more sort of like homo, like whatever, abstract philosophy tard. But I think a lot of this just comes down to like how incapable. I mean, because the bourgeois hasn't been a revolutionary class now for like 6 decades, and they're just like so out of ideas for dealing with problems. Because the craziest thing about all of this is that unvaccinated people aren't putting vaccinated people in any danger. The vax doesn't stop the fucking spread. It just alleviates some of the more brutal symptoms that can be associated with the disease. So the only person you're endangering is yourself. Like, it's crazy. It's like somebody going bungee jumping and then screaming at that person, how dare you bungee jump? You're a danger to society. It's like, no, you're a danger to yourself. The most obvious way to actually stop the spread is to give people fucking sick days. That's why they don't want to do it. Like, they think it's more financially efficient to just give us fucking vaccines, keep us working, and hope, that the vaccine is effective enough that people don't drop dead at work. The other more sort of like abstract like take on this, I guess, is like, Giorgio Agamben, the Italian philosopher, has been proven spot on in his critique of like COVID measures since the beginning of the pandemic, that this is basically just empowering a new biopolitical control system. And now that we're sort of like, because we are, the pandemic's being downgraded to just an epidemic outbreak in the fall. So, which is like a flu outbreak. So basically, we are through the worst of this disease. But when you create new social control measures, these new technologies can't lay dormant because they empower new bureaucracies and new apparatuses of the state that need to keep functioning. So yeah, my like more dark take is that it's totally incoherent, that there's no reason for any of it, and that it's literally just an evolution of our political economy that's going to be even more built on a mass system of surveillance and control.
I definitely see it. And the thing that's annoyed me the most watching all this happen is the sort of snarky dirtbag left response, which is that they constantly are going on about how power is like, machinating in order to, reinforce itself, but they refuse to acknowledge how that's happening right now in this very moment. And anybody who does do that, they call a crazy conspiracy theorist, or they gaslight you, or they hit you with their like quippy, like contra smart one-liners. Like I stole that from you. I think you were the one who said that out.
Yeah, that's what I call her.
Yeah, contra smart. Yeah, they're like Chapo style contra smart, like one-liners, and like they'll go on at length about like JFK and go on at length about fucking, whatever other thing, 9/11. And when it comes to like this very moment, they're like, no, everything's fine, bro. What the fuck are you talking about, bro? You fucking QAnon, bro? And it's like such a fucking
there's that
douchey
period of time through the second or third lockdown or whatever, where the Robin Hood thing came up and everyone was going mad about GameStop stock and all that shit, and kind of like everyone was starting to pay attention to the number, not like the raw numbers of the economy, but actually like what's happening, and like, yeah, everything's been shut down. How are we still functioning? Why isn't inflation happened? Like all of this stuff, and they've just been printing money essentially since the pandemic. So it sort of like feels like a ticking time bomb of when it all explodes from like a sort of fatalistic point of view, but also that they make the game so they can just change the fucking rules at any fucking point they want, and it will sustain itself if they want it to keep sustaining, because that's just, it's their own game, you know.
It's
But
sad.
it is weird, like how that is happening. Like when you look at the numbers of like money printed up until 2020 or something, and then money printed since 2020, and it's like triple the amount that's ever been made. That's like concerning and strange. It's sort of like it's like just confirming that thing inside where you're like, it's all just made up numbers. It's all digital now. It's not based on gold or fucking bullshit. It's all just fucking numbers in an account somewhere, and it could just someone could literally just type noughts in and change your life, and nothing would no greater circumstances would come of it. Like that is literally the economy we live in. So it just makes people kind of realize that a little bit more.
Yeah, it's all kind of collapsing on its own contradictions. I do think we'll end up in a recession, but I don't know. The capital just has a way of just kind of reproducing itself endlessly, and even Lenin theorized this, like, that the economy would basically become totally unmoored from labor at a certain point and basically just become a system of financial speculation. But shit, I just had a thought, totally lost it. Shit, say something else and maybe it'll come back to me.
The lockdowns have been instrumental in keeping it alive, it feels like being able to funnel all this money into elites even more, and I don't know how that is like sustaining the economy or how it's fucking working. Like I really don't, but it seems to be beneficial for the people that are running the show, so that's why they're so encouraging of lockdowns. Like Boris Johnson had some really harrowing fucking thing of like quote or video that I saw shared on TikTok or something, where it's like, oh, the masks and the vaccines, that's all fucking poppycock. What's really worked is lockdowns. Lockdowns. We're going to have more and more lockdowns. It's like, well,
the
actually,
fucking masks. Like anyone who says the masks aren't bad needs to get like literally fucking punched in the mouth. They're fucking terrible. They're dehumanizing. They're embarrassing. I can't breathe through my fucking nose. Like it's horrible. Like
no, they love them. They love the BDSM nature of having something covering your mouth. It's like they love that they also are like anti, like a lot of the weird like downwardly mobile libs that like love this shit are like fundamentally antisocial people a lot of the time who despise any kind of human connection or putting themselves out there in a way that allows them to be assessed and either accepted or rejected by other people. So they like the mask, and I think it's so disturbing, especially to imagine that. And I mean, because those are people who are like, oh, in Asia, it's like the norm. So how could you say that? And it's like, well, I have like somewhere like Japan is like an incredibly alienated society with like a super high suicide rate, you know? It's not, and like the social, because I was in China for like 6 months when I was younger. And I was there on like a school program and stuff. And yeah, it's not the most friendly fucking society, and I'm not trying to. Yeah, it's pretty. There's a distance. Like hugging my host mom was like weird, and like as a
great
Westerner,
art, but
great
like, art, but like very specific culture and political economy.
Yeah. As a Westerner, like displays of affection are pretty normal. And like when I first met my host family, I like wanted to hug them, but it was like, oh my God, like no, like the way they show love is by like giving you a lot of food. But they're not very physical type of culture in that sense. But I don't think that that's a good thing. I think physicality is important and faces are important.
Yeah, everyone sort of seems quite surprised when I say like I've been working I've not been working at home for like the last 4 months basically. I've been like, you know, out either in meetings or like in the studio or whatever, like every day pretty much for the last 4 months. And just I know again it's colloquial knowledge is like it doesn't really count for anything, but I've not met anyone that's really fervent on the mask thing. Like out of all the like how many fucking people I've met over the last 4 months, which is like quite a lot, like probably way too many during a pandemic, if I'm honest.
Right.
But like yeah, not like there's always that awkward moment when you first get in the room. It's like I'm just wearing this because it's just like policy. But are you comfortable with? Yeah. Let's just take these off. Like it's just that's the first 2 minutes of every, and it's just like when is it just going to be? We just walk in the room and we just do shit as normal, like we used to.
Oh,
like
man,
why
like
is there even need for it?
The New York subways, people still all wear them. Like it's fucking insane. But I was upstate over the weekend for like I was a groomsman in a wedding, and it was a fucking amazing. It was like the pandemic didn't exist at all. I was like doing MDMA and taking hikes in the fucking woods, and we were dancing till like 4 a.m. It was fantastic. Awesome. But I think like there is like such a darkness right now. Like if anybody tells you that darkness isn't there, then they're lying. They're not just delusional, they're lying and
they're part
implicated
of the
into state ideology. Yeah. Like I was just in San Francisco. We took a trip out there, and I got a lot of love for that city. I really do. Like its climate is just like perfect for me. It's like permanent October. It's a supremely beautiful city, but it's all the arbitrary libtard social measures are in place. You got like city bikes that are run by like complex digital tech systems. You got fucking cardboard straws, you know, as if that's going to solve climate change. Like all this retarded stuff. And against that, I mean, and there's like good parts of the city too. You got like the simulacra of the 60s sort of countercultural stuff that came before, great bookstores, record stores, whatever. But against that, you have a homeless fucking problem that is beyond anything I've ever, like, between like Oregon, Portland, Oregon, and San Francisco. Not only are these like, because we got homeless all over in New York, but in a weird way, they feel sort of more integrated into the city. In San Francisco, you got half its blocks that are basically tent cities, rife of the like most sick human degradation you could possibly imagine. We were riding bikes one morning. We were going to go see the Golden Gate before we flew out. And my fiance, she can't like ride up all those hills in San Francisco. So I had to find a flat route. And the flat route like took us down all the inner city paths. And it was 7 a.m, so it was really early. And we're ending up on these blocks that, like, there's just no fucking police in sight. And it's literally a free-for-all of just, like, total degradation. We drive by, and my fiance gets anxious really quick, too. So, like, she'd stop at a stop sign or whatever, and like there'd be crackheads running all around, and she'd like freeze up and like forget how to ride her bike once the light turned green. It was nuts.
Oh my god!
But we got to this one block, and there was a methadone clinic there, like a big line out the door. And usually methadone clinics are like quiet, and people have a sense of like shame about where their life is at. But this was like literally a fucking crack. It was like a shooting gallery. There was like 50 people in the line, and towards the back there was this like woman holding a boombox that was playing Mobb Deep's The Infamous loud, and they were smoking crack on the way to get their methadone dose. So I see all this shit. I see that the city has totally given up even attempting to deal with this problem. And I think about what Zygmunt Bauman theorized shortly before he died, which is that the ruling class would be so out of ideas of how to improve the living conditions of the masses of people that they would basically just, if not actively kill people, then facilitate the conditions from which people kill each other. Mm-hmm. And my most sort of black-pilled take is that maybe this has to happen. Maybe this is the deterioration of conditions that will lead to something new. But it's disgusting to see. And I can have a laugh about it, but there's a part of me that was depressed for weeks after seeing this bullshit.
The horror of it is visceral and almost like unbelievable. I mean, London has been one of the places that's gone through that sort of rapid neoliberalization as well, and I never thought I would see like tent cities. I was like, when I went to, because me and Jake are going to Nigeria next week for my brother's wedding, and yeah, I had to go to the Nigerian embassy, which is in it's like great Northumberland Avenue, around that area, and like the whole block around like Trafalgar Square and stuff is like full of like homeless people, tent city. And like I feel like, they would rather we all die than change the system sometimes. That's like my black pill is like, I think that the people in this world that have power are not going to budge an inch unless we have like unless class struggle happens, unless a mass class struggle happened, we're pretty
100%.
Much screwed, because they would rather let us all die than to change anything about the status quo.
And that's 100% true.
My San Francisco story is I was there for a couple of weeks for work, and there was two weird things that happened on the way. So it was like walking there, again, like 8 a.m. or whatever. And from a distance, I was kind of like trying to squint to see if I like was seeing properly, but it looked like someone was like knelt down in the middle of the pavement, and then they kind of got up and walked away. And then as I got closer, I realized that they like just took a massive shit, like like in the middle of the pavement. So
Yeah.
like and then they were just sleeping right there, like. And there was only like, it
No.
took me 60 seconds to walk that
No.
distance, and they were
I
just
mean-
like straight asleep. It was just real. That was fucking surreal. And then
And
the other
also-
one was.
Yeah, sorry, go
Oh
ahead.
no. Okay. And the other one was. I was like coming up Market Street again, and there was like, I think it was near this kind of subway station or something, and there was like at least 6 people doing a active like meth deal, but just really loudly, like it
Oh
could,
my God.
like it was being filmed for a sitcom or something like that. Like everyone was like popping one line. It was just like stupid. I just like, I wish I like, it would feel weird to sample it or like but that's the music fucking producer in me. But like you could, like if I recorded that, it would be fucking gold. It was just those like kind of
Yeah.
stupid fucking moments. But it was like, it was
Just
also
like
just
seeing like Vincent Vega.
it was really fucking, yeah, like heavy to fucking see on your way to work. That's
Just like a
fucking
meth
intense
deal
as
going
fuck.
down.
That's fucking
mean-
intense,
Wow.
man.
Yeah, go ahead.
That's why, like, I mean, that's why it's so sort of nefarious when someone like Liz Brunig or whatever will say, "What's the problem? The person shooting fucking smack on the subway isn't hurting anyone. What's so bad about that?" Because what they're doing is legitimizing these crumbling conditions. That is basically the role of the left in our society now, is to not push back on the root causes of these things, but to normalize sort of the worst fallout of its excesses. And what you said before, Angie, I think is totally fucking true. Like, they won't budge an inch. They just don't. It's not, you know, they're a unified class, and the working class still isn't. And I think that's why, like, some of these, you know, for a while I was kind of curious what was happening on the dissident right. But I basically, like, a lot of them are peddling just such idealistic nonsense at the same time, too. Like, oh, we just need a strong ruler who will put his fist up to the bourgeois and say, no more. Like, it's bullshit. It's not going to happen. The only feasible thing, and this is like my most sort of, this is my libtard Marxoided take, but it's one that I've considered for a very long time and have thought about endlessly. We're not in a place right now where we can reform our way out of this in any capacity.
Yeah, I've been saying that. Yeah.
Yeah. And nothing short of full-blown revolution at the economic basis of society, to abolish the class system altogether would even come close to rectifying these contradictions. That's probably not in our lifetime. But it's not like an emotion. I'm not emotionally attached to Marxism or like, oh yeah, viva la revolution. Yeah, no, I like hate those people as much as anybody.
Yeah,
it's just that I don't think anything else would come close to actually dealing with society's problems.
Everybody's looking at like all these other stupid boogeymen. It's you know, it's this guy, it's that bad guy, it's this bad guy, it's the post left, it's this and that. Nobody ever wants to just like admit that it's class struggle, and class analysis is what is at the root of many of the things that are plaguing us in modernity. And the fact that we have no recourse in our societies in the same way the people in Afghanistan have no recourse, and they're, you know, constantly operated upon by powers that are far out of their reach. We're in a similar situation as normal everyday people, working class people in like the West as well. And that's why it always weirds me out when like people who are working class align themselves with like a political team, and like as if they have any sort of institutional power, and like they themselves alone can sort of fix the problem and demystify it, when the thing we should be encouraging people to do is think critically and, you know, understand what their interests are. And yeah, it's the dissident right as well, like especially when you sort of become disillusioned with all the sort of alienated models on the left, you know, people automatically assume that you're like part of the dissident right, and they start calling, saying you're doing a brown scare. We should just call this podcast Brown Scare. We should change the name of the podcast and make it Brown Scare. But yeah, they're like, oh, you're doing a red and brown fash or whatever the fuck. But I think the dissident right are just as stupid and annoying as like the fucking rad lib like left a lot of the time. And even though there are certain cultural or even certain kind of cultural avenues where that intersect in terms of things we're annoyed about, the conclusions that I'm going to come to are going to be vastly different from the conclusions that a lot of them come to. And I don't know. I don't know how to deal with it, because I like having an ideological space where we all talk to each other and we're all friendly and we can contend with each other even though we don't all agree with each other. But there's like a certain point where the dissident right stuff is like annoying and it's institutionally backed, so it's going to steamroll over anything
Right.
any of us has to say, you know.
Yeah. I mean, it's also so like one of the things that flipped me off the left like was just how it became so anti-art and anti-expression and censorious. And there was a point where I think like there was a real opportunity for the right to be like the sort of arbiters of like upholding these older bourgeois values of free expression, etc. But now it's just like, oh, I'm mad about decadence, I'm mad about this, blah blah blah. But like, I can't fuck with that. It's just like so annoying to me. Like the few things that we still have that like make life worth living at all is, for me, art and creativity. And then they problematize that as well. Like, speaking of Marxoided libtard nonsense, I've been reading a bunch of Trotsky lately. I don't know why, but some of his writing's kind of interesting. But he had some really good takes on art. And he has this one essay about like social realism. He really didn't like social realism, even though it was kind of associated with socialist art or whatever. Because he was like, all that social realism does is sort of show you what's happening and therefore sort of validate its place in culture and say this is okay. Whereas art is supposed to express alienation. And even though it's basically a aristocratic pastime, because the proletariat doesn't really have the time or mechanism to make art, that expression of alienation is vital to sort of like placing yourself against society and understanding the metaphysics that sort of bind the whole sort of culture and society together. And I feel like every fucking direction now, that's something that's like being cast doubt on. Whereas like the only thing that I feel like I can do right now is make the things that I want to make, be unashamed about the things that I say, and never fucking apologize.
Amen to that.
Exactly.
Amen to that. Amen to that. It's so true. And I feel like now more than ever, the environment is sort of begging for nourishment. And also to be reminded of like what art is really for. It's not there to just validate your worldview and make you feel comfortable. It's there to challenge you viscerally, and make you contend with your worldview so that you can make it stronger or change it or evolve it or whatever it is. And yeah, it's I don't know. It's been really interesting, but it's weird to be in this like weird politically homeless limbo, if you know what I mean. But I kind of like it, even though it's like it's thankless and you don't have many friends and allies. It's way more free and a lot more uninhibited than being institutionally embedded, shilling on the right or the left. And that's the thing people were saying, because as soon as I sort of they were trying to make it like, oh, Angie's done a heel turn. She no longer wants to be associated with, she's now becoming Candace Owens. Like they immediately want to pigeonhole you. I'm like, I wish I was I wish someone would come and pay me to say some dumb shit. I don't get paid that much for what I do, and like I'm like a struggling person just kind of getting by. And to then be sort of, they try and make it seem as if we're all these like actors on the right who are being paid to sow dissent on the left, and all of this, all the crazy conspiracy theories that they come up with, when really and truly it's just like an ideologically free space where people can say what they feel. But then even within that, you do encounter people on the dissident right who just are not, who will do anything in their power to bypass any form of class-based analysis because they have a vested interest in kind of protecting the system. And sometimes you can't even blame them, because if you mention Marxism, they immediately start thinking about the excesses of the left. And look, most of the people who call themselves Marxoids anyway are like the worst fucking horrible, like brittle, bastardized people on the
But
planet.
you guys
So
have
it's like,
direct experience with that, I
we
believe.
have direct experience with that for sure. Wink, wink, nod, nod.
Yeah.
The type of people who will like stab you in the back and tell the world that they're bleeding. The type of people who just want like intellectual authority, you know, and just for the sake of it, not because they actually have any answers or know what to do. And to say I don't have any answers, but I'm interested in excavating isn't good enough, because especially people who came out of breadtube and stuff, the whole grift and the whole way they were able to sort of milk attention, social capital, money out of people was by convincing their audiences that the fate of the world, the fate of socialism, depended on supporting these thought leaders, you know? In the same way that like televangelists say, you are helping spread the gospel of Jesus Christ, you're helping get more people to heaven by donating me and using me as an avatar for your wishes of the world or whatever. And yeah, it's just dark and like twisted. But you see the same thing on the right. Like there are loads of people on the right who are sort of trying to position themselves as these dissident figures who are like dissenting against like the excesses of like neoconservatism and blah blah blah. But they're really the same thing, just like different flavor.
Yeah. They're the the left is the sort of propaganda wing that generates false enthusiasm for bourgeois liberal parties, and the right does it for bourgeois right parties.
Yeah.
It's all fake.
Yeah, it's all fake.
Yeah, that's what I've come to realize, sort of like on the kind of group chats that we're on and whatnot, is like after a while, I'm like, I don't agree with any of this. This doesn't, none of this sort of adds up. Like, and I'm just like getting to the point now where I'm like, yes, I know trans ideology is horrible and oppressive and all this shit, but I just don't want to talk about it anymore. Like
ad nauseum.
And if you want to end those kind of, those are excesses of the same system. Here's like the main thing is like, this is the evolution of capitalism. These are the contradictions that it has found itself in now. So a lot of them are just arguing for a rewind on the very same system that is driving them nuts now. But you can't rewind this shit. And a lot of people will say like, oh no, you can rewind. How? You're going to organize for like 40 years to bring back like one fucking like factory in some fucking town in the middle of America? It's not going to happen. You got to move forward somehow. But I mean, we're just like in a really bad spot at the moment.
Yeah.
And people grapple with their limitations as humans and what they're able to do in lots of ways. But the best thing to do is just to take it easy. I'm kind of lucky on that front because I'm like sort of even though I have all these political views, I'm a totally contradictory human and live sort of like a decadent aristocratic life. But
you're doing a champagne socialism, ill.
Yeah, exactly.
Guillotine for you. What was I saying? Yeah, moving away anyway from social decay and sadness, let's go to the soft, beautiful grounds of Martha's Vineyard, where Obama had his birthday celebration. I believe it was last week, and a video from it accidentally leaked because my girl Erica Badu, she was recording the event. She was there and she was like recording, and then I don't know, for some reason she mysteriously deleted the video, after she put it up. But from what we saw, everyone, it was like a very kind of Benetton ad selection of like black people, and they were all wearing white, and Obama was like dancing, but like
Oh
he
yeah.
can't dance. He was dancing like a white dad, like the way that my boyfriend's dad like dances when he's like at a wedding and has had a few too many or whatever. But yeah, it was just like a bizarre peek into the like weird sterile world of like the elite. Did you see it by any chance?
Yeah. I saw the clip. It looked very decadent. I grew up on Cape Cod, so I've been to
Oh
Martha's
wow,
Vineyard many times, and
fancy.
it's very much like that. And Obama's a wasp, you know. That's just like
Yeah,
he's a total wasp.
he's a
So
wasp
he's
in
just
blackface. Yeah.
yeah,
But that's the
yeah.
thing I've noticed about like American black identity is when it comes to like the prominent black people, you're either somebody who transgresses against but also kind of titillates the white gaze by exaggerating your exoticism or your kind of Morthonian stuff, like getting like a bazillion butt lift like female rappers and like being this sort of over larger than life figure, or you have to be this like neutered Benetton black, which were like the people who were at Obama represents that, and the people who were there at his party were also all that like the Don Lemons and the Commons, and even I love Erica Badu. Don't get me wrong. I think every black woman loves Erica Badu, but even she sort of represents that kind of like very subdued uh form of black identity that's like acceptable in America. And yeah, the whole thing just looked kind of dystopian to me. But yeah, he's definitely a wasp. Definitely a wasp, and that's the best description that I've heard of him so far, is like a wasp in blackface.
Yeah. Well, I see
Yeah.
anti-racism itself as a form of white supremacism in a lot of ways. Like,
Mm.
just like the very ideology that surrounds it, because it seems to all be predicated on kind of like a homogenization of culture. I mean, you can definitely see this in art. I mean, all art. But I mean, like a lot of the like artists who make it in big careers now are like kind of unanimously the ones who, in some ways, repeat the regime ideology in the art world. That's like, you know, people like Mickalene Thomas, or I'm sure there are cases in music as well. It's been a long time since we've had I've been thinking a ton about Wu-Tang Clan recently,
Mm-hmm.
because they were like so fucking brilliant.
Mm.
And like Wu-Tang was like theory fiction. It was like applying a metaphysical mythology to a lived reality,
Mm.
in almost in like a Pinchonian sense. But
Mm.
like Ghostface Killah is not going to get invited to the. I mean, Ghostface Killah is one of
No.
the greatest poets of the last 30 years. He's not going to get
Mm-hmm.
invited to Obama's
Mm-hmm.
thing. There's
Mm-mm.
always sort of a moral barometer, a very bourgeois conception of morality
Mm-hmm.
attached to who gets a spot. There was this
Mm-hmm.
great writer, for instance, Darius James, in the
Mm.
90s. He wrote this book called Negrophobia, which is one of my favorite novels of sort of that like 90s transgressive fiction time.
Mm.
A legitimate, Black American genius.
Mm.
And the book is basically, it places this girl named Bubbles, who's like this sort of stereotype of a Upper East Side white girl who gets kicked out of her white college and gets sent to like a very sort of like extreme racial paranoiacs version of an inner city school. And
Mm.
all the characters in the books become like extreme, exaggerated stereotypes, and the whole thing kind of becomes a very early critique of the way that we hold people to stereotypes. But he wasn't just like critiquing Republicans or conservatives. It was like an attack on liberalism itself.
Mm.
And
Like Boondocks was that as well. Because I
yeah,
remember
very
the
similar.
the Tom character in Boondocks was basically Obama before Obama was Obama. And it was like prescient. And the episode of Boondocks, with the Obama episode with like Werner Herzog, that was critical of Obama during a time where it was like social suicide to be. And it makes me sad because I say this all the time on the show. I feel like a show like Boondocks could never happen now in this day and age. Like Boondocks was this huge criticism. It was a massive critique of post-civil rights Black America. It was like an honest and fearless examination of like the terrain that you just couldn't have now. Like you said, it's what this wokeness is trying to create a diversity, but a diversity in which actual difference is not tolerated.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's kind of the dystopia of Black identity right now. And it's horrible. I experience it all the time, not just in terms of my public presence, but also in my real life, where authenticity is like, dare I say, buck broken right out of you.
Yeah.
It's buck broken right out of you. You have to basically conform to the Martha's Vineyard stereotype and be like that keynote speaker at the fucking
You need to get you a white khaki outfit.
like a white khaki outfit, rub me down in shea butter and like patchouli oil, and
Yeah.
get
Well,
me a head wrap, like all of those kind of monikers of us, of this subdued, soft, magical Negro, palaceable Black presence that is acceptable to the liberal intelligentsia. And that's what they really wanted me to be. They thought that was what I was going to be, because I shot up pretty quickly when I first started making content, because that was what they thought I was going to be. They thought that I was going to do that and be like that lady who did the poet laureate lady and just be there.
Amanda
saying,
Gorman.
like,
I wrote a thing about her.
Oh my god! Oh my god!
I launched safety propaganda with that essay, actually.
Oh wow! Oh, I need to read it. But yeah, that's what's acceptable for you to like basically do the noble savage shit and like piece the fuck out, cash the fuck out, and like I'm sure my mom would be a lot prouder of me if I did that, but I don't think I would be very proud of myself. Because my mom is like a typical like CNN watching like Nigerian mom who is excited. Her generation is like excited about the idea of these symbolic gestures of representation way more than people in our generation. Well, actually, I don't even know if it's way more. I think a lot of people in our generation are excited by that stuff. And I feel like those of us who aren't are like far in the minority.
Yeah. Definitely.
And seen as cynical poo-pooers.
Yeah, cynical, or Uncle Tom's, which is even worse.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a proud African woman, third generation Nigerian immigrant, speak Yoruba fluently, have an intense knowledge of African history. I'm very comfortable with who I am. I just don't see myself as an inferior to white people. I don't. And I'll never allow anyone to make me feel that way. There's nothing they can do to make me feel that way. And if someone tried to, then they're just being antisocial, and I don't want to fucking be around antisocial people. That's kind of been my line in terms of how I've navigated racism throughout my whole life. And I've not had that many serious incidents of racism. I've had some incidents, but really and truly, like, it's not like I'm assailed by it on a daily basis. I can like live my life. And like, I just hate how, especially Black art now, it's just so like, there'll never be another Basquiat. There'll never be another. I'm afraid that there'll never be another Basquiat.
I mean, actually, I have this friend, Cedric Chisholm, who is a really close friend of mine and a young Black man who's super base and like totally rejects all of this bullshit. But I mean, he's not going to be like elevated in the way that Basquiat was. But I don't think there'll be another. I mean, we're just like, there won't be any kind of artists like that anymore because they're just not the ones that are sort of. I mean, Basquiat had like a real kind of aristocratic will to power in his work that is like frowned upon now. I mean, these are basically like, this is basically like the apotheosis of trends that have been happening since the 1960s. I mean, when it came to dealing with the Black Panthers, They killed Fred Hampton. They drove Huey into drug addiction and madness, because those guys were like the real radicals, the real revolutionaries who understood power and political economy. And then the petty bourgeois strivers, they sort of just like brought into the system and said, if you sort of do the bidding of liberal piety, there'll be a place for you. And this kind of carried over into cultural industries, etc. Like that guy I just talked about, Darius James, it wasn't black artists. I mean, the artists who liked him were like gay white edgelords like Dennis Cooper and Gary Indiana and shit. And the people that ended his career were actually older artists from like Black Power generation, like
it wouldn't
Betty
surprise me.
Saar, and he never wrote another book. He never got another publishing deal. Like it totally fucked his life up because he offended them. But there is one positive development I want to point out right now, which is that one of the greatest and most underrated postmodern fiction writers of the 60s to 70s, Ishmael Reed, who in addition to being a fucking genius, also has had a very loud critique of academic black feminism for his entire career, because he said it stereotypes and problematizes black masculinity. And he's gotten shit for this his entire goddamn career. Is having a huge renaissance in New York right now. He's got a play coming out that is about his hatred for Hamilton. And he just got a huge profile in the New Yorker. Yeah, I know it's a small thing, but this gave me some hope that there might be hope space for black transgressive art.
Yeah, space for black transgressive art, exactly. Like that's what I'm like hoping for, because really and truly, a lot of the black artists who are coming up now are doing all the right things, playing by all the rules, and therefore having the door of institutional access open to them. And it's not even just black artists. Like look at I don't know if you heard about the new Contra Smart video that came out.
A little bit.
Yeah, it was called Envy, and it was basically about how the thesis or whatever. I haven't watched it because I haven't watched a Contra Smart video for like 4 years. But one of my friends, not since I was like in my Joe Rogan is literally a fascist phase. I grew out of that and, moved on to more sound things. But my friend watched it and sort of gave me the gist. And there was apparently a part in there where Contra was talking about how it's the will to power, and that those who are exercising the will to power are like winning, and those who are not are just resentful. And what I sort of garnered from that is the idea that identity is now the will to power. That's what the will to power is like wrapped up in, identity, and you being able to use and like leverage your identity in order to gain institutional access, attention, money, whatever the fuck. And those of us who reject that or who don't have that to tap into, meaning white men, are just resentful and jealous of all these brave and stunning people, which is just so disgusting. Like, those people played by all the rules. They did everything that they were incentivized to do. They're no fucking better. They're no more virtuous. They didn't climb the ladder of this like brutal meritocracy. They just did exactly what they were supposed to fucking do on paper. Right. And like those of us who are like on the fringes doing something more transgressive, it's fucking a million times fucking harder for us, if even impossible at times, to get past those checks, at the sort of shibboleths that allows them to know that you're morally sound enough to have your voice heard. I'm not even politically black. I'm politically Aryan or whatever. So why the fuck should anyone listen to me? Like it's so pernicious. And it is pushing out the voices of like black transgressive art, which used to be a thing, but it's no longer a thing. They're cutting all the avenues of that away and sort of trying to push this very sanitized version, which it gets nowhere near the real interesting aspects of like the black experience, not just the black experience, the human experience. Because they want to look in on the Black experiences like a voyeuristic freak, rather than being able to understand that looking in on someone else's experience highlights the shared humanity. And they don't want that. And they're sort of cutting away all the channels for that to like actually occur. And yeah, it makes me fucking sad.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel, obviously, I mean, I was kicked out of whatever, media and art for a while, but I also feel very lucky to an extent, because I have, for every 10 people that think I'm a heinous Nazi, there's at least one person who thinks that I'm smart and interesting and mean well. And everyone, and the fact remains, people who actually know me know that I'm like a genteel, sweet boy at heart. So,
well, that's the thing. All the people in our little corner are women and gays, and if they're white men, they're like in an interracial relationship. Like,
yeah, like
no,
me.
What's
like,
that supposed to mean?
yeah.
What's that supposed to mean?
Well, oh no, sorry, Jake. I'm not
No,
calling you out.
Jake, you and I are one on that issue.
You guys are your penises are colonizers. You colonized a couple
in
of
the best
women of
possible
colors
way.
in the best possible way. Yeah, but no, yeah, like it's all the people in our corner are like gay dudes and like women and people of color. So I don't understand how they can just paint us with this like broad brush of being horrible, reactionary, fascist, like evil, like Nazis, when we're just people trying to figure shit out in real time.
You know, they're inculcated into regime ideology, and
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
and when you're buried under propaganda, it's hard to see outside of it. You end up doing the bidding of something you're not even a part of for free. It's pretty fucking crazy. But
Yeah.
I got a deadline, so I have to jump off the call pretty soon. But I got this fantastic email from a fan last night that made me feel pretty good and is relevant here. This is, I can't say who it's from because it might get him in trouble, but it's from a sort of rising painter in New York. My hot vac summer has been a bit out of control. I've been living a fag strumpet true life, addicted to after-hours club and physical contact with men, he says. Snorting ketamine, Gollum, and walking red flag in this new stage of pandemic fascism. But I've been addicted to your podcast and to safety propaganda. I've read and listened to almost every single thing that you've done. And whenever I go back to check out the New York Times, Hyperallergic, or Brooklyn Rail, I have a distinct feeling of uncontrollable nausea for how insipid, letarded, and cucked it all sounds. So congrats for brainwashing me. I'm fully aboard the Adam Lehrer PSYOP deprogramming train and fucking living for it.
Yes, you have a true believer.
Yeah,
maybe
exactly.
you are the Kwisatz Haderach.
Maybe I'm the fucking Messiah. Holy shit.
I'm the one that looks like Jesus.
Yeah,
here.
Jake's
Fucking
the one
hell.
that looks like Jesus.
Yeah, that's true, but I'm Jewish.
Yeah, yeah, you got it.
Maybe
no,
together, the two of us, we have to like combine genetic code somehow.
Like Ultron or something.
Like
or like the Dragon Ball Z
Gundam
fusion dance.
Totally.
Oh my god, as long as I get to be like the Bene Gesserit that like oversees that process happening. But thank you so much, Adam, for coming on. If you would like to help support Low Society audience, please check out our Patreon. You can get bonus episodes for $5. I'm also doing a Camille Paglia book club. So if you join the Patreon, you get access to the Discord. Our first session is going to be tomorrow, Wednesday at 5:30 EST. So yeah, we're going to be talking about sexual personae in the Discord. Adam, anything else you'd like to plug before we hand out?
Safety Propaganda is at safetypropaganda.substack.com. Some of my best writing, as well as some of my quote unquote comrades, is on there. It's also a publishing company now. We just released our first book, which is by my friend, the artist Alex Beanstalk. That will be online at safetypropaganda.store. Our System of Systems podcast is at systemofsystems.patreon.com. And my book, which is going to change the fucking game, is going to be out on September 30th on Hyperion Press. It is called Communions. Get ready to praise and worship at the altar of me.
Wow, that's the best self-plug. I need some of your confidence to rub off on me. I'm so bashful whenever I do it.
You really just gotta like fudge it. I mean, people find, it's all fake. I'm actually riddled with self-doubt and insecurity, but I don't let it show.
No, I gotta channel that Kanye energy. I gotta get that Kanye energy. But thank you so much for coming on, and yeah, come back again. This is a great episode, and thank you guys in the audience for. Yeah, thank you. Thank you guys in the audience for listening as well. We shall catch you later. Goodbye.
Bye.
Later. Bye.